Back in the 1980s and 90s, there were back and forth in China's relationship with the rest of the world. You were there into China as often as you can and also stay with the Chinese artists. Then when China joined the WTO and really connected with the rest of the world, you were also there, trying to witness every step of the way the changes. And now we are seeing another interesting period of time in which people are trying to rediscover China, if I could use a very diplomatic word. And you are still here. So I guess, how do you make process and observe and try to digest and be able to come up with your own way?
Once I was into it, there was no way out. And of course, it all connected to my professional life, to my private life. So, once you are in it, then how other than to go forward and, master whatever, the situation would, demand. So that curiosity I also have just helped me through every single issue. Of course, now I'm much more sophisticated in observing China, and China has become much more sophisticated than it was end of the 70s. And so, both sides kind of learned how to cope with the world and with the other part of the world. So yes, that particularly art helps me to remain involved in whatever happens in China. I think very early it will be visual in art.
If I could quote an artist who just won the 2023 Sigg Prize, a prize that you have been supporting in order to encourage more development of Chinese contemporary art. This artist said this in an interview. It was about my personal interest. And then I found out more about how society works. And you just want to try to solve some problems. Maybe it's something you are doing in vain. It's not something you can really solve. But during this process, you get to know yourself more and you get to know your surroundings more. And he continues to say, you want to criticize, you want to reflect, and you want to be an inspiration for others because you always gain inspiration from others. End of quote. A reflection about what went through his mind when he was trying to create art. Of course, he belongs to the younger generation, the latest generation of Chinese artists. So when you were saying they are very different, how do you see, words like these coming from the younger generation?
Well, I see these remarks more as observations by a young individual getting into producing art. And I created actually this art award for very much that purpose he's describing, to have a relevant debate, maybe in society, about contemporary art, what art should do in a society and all that. So that's what art is very much about.
And what have you seen in the latest works of these winners of the prize? Many works that impressed you?
The artist, a female artist, worked with AI and using machine learning, but say impacting the mechanism of the learning itself. So a gaming engine being impacted by another AI engine. So, adding more layers to art creation than one could do earlier. So that was quite experimental.
Is this the way how you communicate with China? By looking through the contemporary art? And also, is this also the way about how you update yourself, to move together with the artists?
Very much so. For me, the occupation with the contemporary art is a very, very strong influence, because the artists, continue to reflect what the society is like, what the concerns of people are in the society as of today, and it's a true reflection of China, more varied, more ample than, say, politics only, than business only. So it really helps me to understand China, and it helps me to remain open. There is a saying in art that people can only understand their own generation of artists in the contemporary art. And I am not of this opinion. And actually, I'm very interested to see what the younger and the youngest generations do. And I feel I have some understanding for what they do. And of course, now, for instance, the digital world, like there's this NFT, influence all over now in the art world, just as one part of analog, of digital, as one part of digital art. And so, say, my way learning about this is to maybe buy an NFT and to produce an NFT. So, I have an understanding what this is about, what it would do to the current artwork. So it keeps me, learning.
Chinese contemporary art, also with the support of you, have been going global back from the 1990s onward. They were in the different Biennale. Right now, you're in Hong Kong, attending the Art Basel Hong Kong. How do you see these occasions will be, can they accurately reflect what is going on in the Chinese contemporary art? Or these are relatively selections more appealing to the curiosity of, quote unquote, the others, those outside China?
Well, it's to a degree the latter. So, of course, the art fair is a marketplace, and it's for people to buy contemporary art. And the first impulse people buy art normally is to, they have an apartment, they have a wall, so they will buy something they can live with. So that still remains a large segment of such an art fair. The people who buy for, what eventually may become furniture in their apartment. They may, at some point, not notice it anymore. Then it's time to have something new, provided you can stay the course, also financially. So then beyond that, of course, there is an art market and a marketplace for people who are deeper into art and want to see more sophisticated art, up to very large artworks. And that's all on offer somehow in an art fair. But of course, the art fair still is one segment only. Then there are the very big global type documenta, biennales, etc. And they have the tendency to show a slightly different art, which may be more complex, has more space to develop, etc., etc. So there are different worlds in the art world, but this art fair, Hong Kong, is a very important art fair, the most important in Asia.
Now, these days, the West Kowloon Cultural District has become a well-known place for the rest of Asia and the world to see art related to China and from China. But back then, when you were making the decision to make a donation, there was nothing there 8 years ago. And there were ups and downs in the debates about whether there should be one place like that, how much funding it needed, and what M+ it should be about, and the list goes on. Can you share with us what you went through, and now when you reflect upon your decision to donate a huge chunk, thousands of work to the M+ in Hong Kong, after decades of collecting Chinese contemporary art, what comes to your mind?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to see it in this great M+ museum in Hong Kong. And I think it's the best museum in the world at the moment. And it better be, because it's the newest, most recent, best architects. And the people of Hong Kong put a huge fund there to build it. So it's a great home for that part of my collection. And when I started the collection, and I noticed no one really collects in other than random way. I thought I want to build this collection which allows to read the storyline of contemporary art from its inception to today, and find a home in China, because to me it was clear, even though there was interest in London, New York, etc., it must be in China to be available to the Chinese people. Hong Kong is China, so I'm quite happy about the outcome.
Of course, during the process, you also see a lot of chaos in Hong Kong as a result of complexities. There were also debates about works to be shown, what should be appropriate or not. These, of course, are debates that's going on with exhibitions all over the world. But here in China, of course, it's very different perspectives. So, as the person in the middle of it, how do you guarantee the integrity of yourself as a collector and the integrity of artists that you have collected works from, and the integrity of your donation with your heart to China?
You have this type of debate in every country, in every jurisdiction. Of course, the criteria may be different, but art always has to live in a space with constraints. And of course, the constraints created by the national security law, etc., are there, but we cannot operate outside the law. So it's there. We have to adapt to it, and still, the people are very impressed with what they see in this exhibition, even under that constraint, of what we will call censorship. They are very surprised how much can be seen in an exhibition in Hong Kong, and also that, there is room to show things. And is also some breathing space, if I may call it such, to what can be shown in the mainland. And we have to, of course, explore what that breathing space is. But we must remain within the law.
You have been, together with your wife, Rita, very welcoming to many visitors from China to your home. And whoever wants to know China, they want to visit your home, get to know China through your art, and also talking to you. I really wonder how big a heart you and your family need to have in order to embrace all of these people with curiosity, with enthusiasm, and sometimes with frustrations.
Of course, it's rewarding for both sides, because for us also very interesting to see what the reactions are, be it of Chinese people, coming from foreigners, coming from officials from China, coming of private collectors from China. It's a diversity of reactions. Also in the exhibition here in Hong Kong, for me, this is a very moving moment. Sometimes I lead the tour through the exhibits, and very often the people start to cry. The Chinese people, mainland people, they start to cry. I'm very moved. They say, wow, I had no idea this is, we have this width and depth of art creation in China. Others, particularly moved, say, oh, I see my whole life mirrored in this art. I didn't know this exists. So, I see my youth, I see my upbringing reflected in this art. So it's a very rewarding process, as it appears for both sides.
Some say, despite the efforts that we have been making, the communications between the East and West, especially at a time when you see the quote-unquote the paradigm change, still remains skin deep, particularly with the test of the pandemic and things related to it. How do you see that as someone who has been so keen in bringing the Chinese contemporary art to the world and learning through it about China?
Well, there were, shall we say, better moments on both sides than right now, but I'm very optimistic. And I think art can also cure some of the issues and can open, the eyes of either side. So will it go beyond skin deep? That's a long-term issue. But I think the West has realized that globally there is a culture, the Chinese culture, that is a match to the Western culture. And it starts to realize it may have to acquire more knowledge about that. And China makes an effort, although I think that that effort could still be made better on the Chinese side as well, to communicate what Chinese culture is about. So it takes a long time to get that each side, will develop a full understanding. But it may happen.